This is part two of my review of the Sagas of Icelanders, which up until page 184 has consisted of only Egil's saga, or Egil's, or however you say his name, Egil. And it comes to a passage at the very end after he dies that makes it sound like he was a giant. They didn't tell us this in the whole saga till the very end. And they did tell us that in the midst of a fight that he threw his sword away and basically attacked a guy and killed him with his bare hands, pulled his eye out of his eye socket and everything else. So this dude was pretty strong, but I'm going to read you an excerpt from Egil's saga, which is from the Sagas of Icelanders. So let me find the right line here. I'll just read this whole paragraph. Grim from Mosfell was baptized when Christianity was made the law in Iceland, and he had a church built at Mosfell. It is said that Thordis had Egil's bones moved to the church. This is supported by the fact that when a cemetery was dug after the church that Grim had built at Hrisbu was taken down and set up at Mosfell, human bones were found under the site of the altar. They were much larger than normal human bones. And on the basis of old accounts, people are certain they must have belonged to Egil, or Egil, however the hell you say his name. So Skafti Thoranesen, the priest, a wise man, was there at the time. He picked up Egil's skull and put it on the wall of the churchyard. The skull was astonishingly large and even more incredible for its weight. So talk about it was all ridged on the outside. It was all ridged on the outside, like a scallop shell. So you can imagine it's got these wavy kind of appearance to it. That I don't know if you've seen a scallop squash, but it's got that kind of a edge of a flower, like anyway, you can look up what a scallop looks like. That's really weird, because what skulls do you know of that have a scallop on the outside of them? Curious to test its thickness, Skafti took a fair-sized hand axe in one hand and struck the skull with it as hard as he could to try to break it. A white mark was left where he struck the skull, but it neither dented nor cracked. This goes to prove that such a skull would not have been easy for weak men to do damage when it was covered with hair and skin. Egil's bones were buried by the edge of the churchyard at Mosfell. So the other part that's interesting about that is this saga was sometime around 850 to 1000 AD, which, if you just listen to that number, you think, well, that's a long time ago. It's not a long time ago. Here we are at 2023. That means only 1,000 years ago, or, 10 lifetimes. So think back 10 lifetimes, there was giants running around that were Vikings, is what I get out of this. And I've read a lot of old books, and people say sometimes don't take them literally, but these are supposed to be historical accounts of the sagas of the Vikings from Iceland and Norway, and they ended up in Labrador, up in that region, and then in the Americas later on, which was on that recent William Shatner TV episode talking about the ice or the Vikings showing up even as far Midwest as Minnesota. And there's some carved monuments up there that they believe are legitimate. So 1,000 years ago, still giants living on Earth, which, you can read a lot of older books, and there's stories of giants and dragons. And it's clear to me that all this stuff around medieval times, Beowulf were written around that time, Middle Ages. I totally believe there was dragons and giants still around. And what killed them off? Probably mankind got together and got rid of them, but because they were troublemakers, really. This Egil guy died of he got a disease, I guess, and passed away. But man, he killed a lot of people in this story. So next up in this book, I'm going to periodically do reviews of the next sagas. The people of Vatnsdal are the next one. The saga of the people of Vatnsdal. Now, a lot of them become a lot shorter. They're not as long as this 184-page saga of Egil, or however you say his name, but I'll post as I find little tidbits that are interesting. Like I say, it's a lot of killing and death and stuff, but then you get little tidbits like that that are quite interesting. So looks like there's some giant Vikings to me.